7 spine-chilling ghosts exposed on camera. Discover the cursed paranormal activity revealed. The night air crackled as Rachel stared at the ghostly images filling her screen. 7 twisted faces blinked back with hollow eyes, their expressions frozen in agony. There was no escape from the realization that something sinister had embedded itself in her life, deep within the very walls of her home. The air grew thick with anxiety, and she felt as though she were being watched not just by the shadows twisting in the corners but by something more malevolent. Only a week had passed since Timmy stumbled upon that cursed camera in the attic, the air around it heavy with whispers that seemed to echo in her mind, begging to be unleashed. A chill scampered up her spine as she remembered the way the camera hummed to life as soon as Timmy held it. It was an ancient relic, burdened with secrets, and somehow, it had found them. Now, in their modest kitchen, darkness crept into the corners like a predator stalking its prey. The neighborhood might appear charming on the surface, but beneath that veneer, she could feel the decay, a hidden peril. And her online community had become a refuge, a warning ground for others who had lived through untold horrors, each thread pulling her deeper into a world she never wanted to enter. "Mom! Look at this one!" Timmy shouted, a mix of excitement and wonder in his voice. Rachel forced a smile, but the hair on the back of her neck bristled. Each photo he snapped sent her heart racing, every flash like a tremor of impending doom. Their laughter echoed in the empty corners, but outside, she could sense the quietude deepening, thickening. Night was coming, and with it, all things she feared would come alive. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The night deepened, swallowing their laughter to bring forth an oppressive silence. Just as Rachel's nerves began to settle, a faint whisper danced through the air, brushing against her like a cold hand gracing her shoulder. She glanced at Timmy, his wide eyes reflecting the dim glow from the street lamp seeping through the window. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice trembling, and her heart skipped a beat. The shadows contorted, flickering against the walls as if alive, spiraling around them. Rachel clutched Timmy's arm tighter. They were not alone. Her thoughts drifted to the Smiths next door, always so helpful, an almost eerie presence. What if they knew? They had always watched them as if knowing their struggles, offering help with a kindness that felt a little too invasive, like they were puppeteers in a play of misery. Then, the electricity flickered. The pulse of the house thrummed in her ears as an unsettling dread clawed its way up her throat. "Mom, look!" Timmy shouted again, pointing toward the screen, where ghostly figures took shape with more clarity than before. He didn't know, but Rachel sensed that their neighborhood's darkness was surfacing. Trust had twisted into something grotesque. With every lingering moment, she felt the weight of betrayal sharpen. Her heart pounded like a wild drum in her chest, the night closing in on them, realization dawning that their fight was no longer merely against poverty but against a darkness entrenched in their very home. And then came the sound, a soft but unmistakable chuckle, echoing through the kitchen as horrors began to unfold. Rachel's breath hitched. She had to confront the truth. Suddenly, the door creaked, and she could see shadows pooling just outside their windows, creeping closer. As she steeled herself for the confrontation, an eerie voice whispered back to her, "They know what you found." The camera flashed one last time, and with its final image developing before her, Rachel's heart dropped, knowing they may not just be ghosts haunting her family, they could be the ones who cursed them all along. The door creaked open, and shadows slithered into the kitchen as if they were extensions of the night itself. Rachel's heart raced, blood pounding in her ears. She could see Timmy's reflection in the screen, the growing fear mirrored in his wide, pleading eyes. Whatever was outside, it was coming for them. "Stay close to me, Timmy," she whispered, trying to keep her voice steady while her stomach tossed and turned. Fear ricocheted through her mind. How could she protect him when she felt so utterly helpless? Suddenly, a rush of cold air surged through the room, extinguishing the warmth that had clung to her skin. The camera flickered ominously on the table, displaying one of the ghostly images, the face of a woman twisted in eternal woe, nearly screaming without sound. Their eyes met in that moment, an unspoken connection forged in terror. The woman seemed to beg for relief. "It's time," the chilling voice from outside murmured again, now louder, teetering on the edge of sanity. Rachel felt paralyzed. Someone, knew about the camera. Timmy tugged at her sleeve. "Mom." The sound of her name fell from his lips like a prayer. It snapped her back to reality. She grabbed the camera with trembling hands, ready to confront whatever horror awaited them outside. "Let us go upstairs." "We can hide," Rachel said, fighting to keep her voice from wavering. She ushered Timmy toward the staircase, but before they could make it up, flickering shadows grew more distinct, swirling like a tempest. They danced on the walls, mimicking their despair, pulling her attention back to the doorway. Come out," the voice sang from the dark, now muffled and distorted, as if a crowd of spirits had come together to utter the same dreadful invitation. Just then, the kitchen lights flickered, plunging them into momentary darkness. Rachel's heart pounded furiously in her chest. Panic surged through her, and she found herself gripping Timmy tightly, feeling his warm body quivering next to hers. "Mom, what do we do?" His voice trembled, the innocence in it causing her heart to splinter. "Just stay quiet," she breathed, closing her eyes for a moment, praying. As if in response, the door slammed open. The lights flickered once more, barely illuminating a figure cloaked in shadow. It moved with inhuman grace, almost gliding as it stepped forward. Rachel's instincts kicked in, forcing her back against the wall. But the warm embrace of the wall quickly dissolved, turning icy as every instinct screamed danger. A faint glow radiated from the figure, illuminating its features, pale skin stretched taut over bones, eyes void yet piercing, laced with malevolence. Each breath it drew filled the room with a stench of decay. "You've awakened us," it spoke, voice a low hiss, wrapping around Rachel like a serpent. "You've unleashed what was meant to be buried." The flickering lights began to pulse like a heartbeat, and the shadows writhed, expanding like dark wings. Memory flashed in Rachel's mind, visions of the camera, the whispers, the intervening silence of the Smiths. They had known, hadn't they? She had invited this into their home. A knot formed in her throat, she felt sick. "Mom." Timmy's sharp voice broke through her haze of terror. The shadow loomed closer, stretching its twisted hand towards them. In that moment, Rachel summoned every ounce of bravery she had left and shouted, "Get back." A wave of desperation coursed through her veins, igniting a flicker of hope. "I want to let you take him." Silence swallowed the room for an electrifying moment, the shadow hesitating. Then, laughter rushed back, a cacophony of tortured souls embracing her fears. The camera suddenly illuminated, casting eerie light that exposed more faces pressing against its glass, wretched souls trapped, gazing desperately with silent screams. Rachel's breath quickened as she realized that the figures weren't just watching. They were waiting. But for what? She felt one of their icy fingers trace the outline of her shame. What would happen if she couldn't protect Timmy from what she had awakened? Suddenly, the air shifted again, an echoing laugh reverberated through the house, chilling her to the bone. This is just the beginning. As the lights dimmed further, Rachel's panic surged. What more horror awaited them just outside? They were caught between shadows and a legacy far darker than they ever imagined. Uncertainty loomed heavily. Where was the curse leading them next? The ground beneath her shifted ominously, and Rachel realized the darkness inside was only beginning to claw its way into their lives. The shadows twisted, writhing like restless spirits unleashed from their binds. Rachel's instinct screamed for her to run, but her body felt frozen, gripped by icy tendrils of dread. Timmy whimpered softly beside her, clinging to her hand. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown. The figure stepped closer, the dim light revealing more of its ghastly features, a mouth stretched into a grin that had no place in the realm of the living. Rachel could hardly breathe as that sinister smile pierced her very soul. "Do you hear them?" It hissed, voice slithering through the air. They've been waiting for a chance, waiting for you. Timmy's grip tightened. I want to go home, he cried, his voice cracking. With a snap, the lights flickered faster now, throwing jagged shadows all around them. The walls seemed to close in, contorted faces melting into one another, taunting Rachel. Mom, please. Timmy's plea ricocheted in her mind, pushing her toward action. She had to protect him. She had to fight back. Suddenly, Rachel remembered the camera. Could it be used against this entity, this nightmare? She raised it high, struggling to steady her shaking hands. Who are you? She shouted, desperation pouring from her voice. The figure responded, its laugh echoing contemptuously. You think you can control what you don't understand? We are the consequence of your curiosity, and now, we will collect. Collect? The thought clawed at her insides. Behind her, the faces in the camera flickered, a chorus of anguish bursting forth. Help us. They mouthed, but the words hung limp in the air like an unspoken curse. Timmy, we need to leave. Now. She yelled, and they bounded up the stairs, sheer panic propelling them forward. The shadows chased them, twisting and darting in the corners of her vision. With every creak of the floorboards, her heartbeat ricocheted against the suffocating walls of the staircase. Mom! What's happening? Timmy gasped, his breath shallow, wide eyes now glistening with unshed tears. Just hold on. She screamed, pushing through the door at the top of the stairs. They tumbled into the hallway. The air was thick with darkness, and the distant whispers grew louder, a cacophony that sent shivers down Rachel's spine. She knew they were not safe here, not while the darkness lingered. As Rachel fumbled for the master bedroom door, she looked back, dread flooding her. The figure was there at the foot of the staircase, illuminated only by a flickering light. Its gaze bore into her, a hungry hunger that sent chills deep into her marrow. Nowhere to run, it taunted, tilting its head like a predator sizing up its prey. Quick, in here! Rachel shouted, throwing open the bedroom door. She slammed it behind them and pressed her back against it, breathing hard. Mom, I'm scared. Timmy's voice trembled like a candle about to go out. Rachel glanced around the room, searching for weapons or anything that could aid in their escape. Old furniture, a clutter of boxes, nothing that could fend off a supernatural horror. But then, her gaze landed on the closet. A dull shimmer caught her eye, and she felt a glimmer of hope. Timmy, come here. As they scrambled to the closet, the door rattled violently, the figure's laughter echoing through the cracks. You can't hide forever, it sang, each word wrapping around them like chains. What's in the closet? Timmy asked, fear cracking his voice. I don't know, she admitted, swallowing hard. But we have to try. They opened the creaking door, and a chill swept out, as if the closet had been a trapdoor to a darker abyss. A deep, throaty whisper curled out, merging with the chaos beyond. Help us. With a shaking breath, she stuck her head inside. It plunged into overpowering darkness, a weight that closed in around her. But nestled in the back, her hands touched something cool and smoothed the edge of an old mirror. In that instant, Rachel felt it, a pulse of history pouring through the glass, a connection reaching across time. If she could capture what was waiting on the other side, Timmy, grab that. She urged, and they pulled the mirror out. Together, its surface dim but untouched. But wouldn't that open a door for the darkness? Would it trap them too? The shadows twisted outside, the chuckling deepening. Mom, I don't think this is a good idea, Timmy whispered. Rachel's heart raced. She needed to break free from this hell, but now she had choices to make. How far would she go to save her son? How many secrets would they have to awaken before they defined peace? The figure's voice whispered through the crack of the door. Just give in or join us. Rachel clutched the mirror tightly, feeling its icy grip echo the depths of her fear. What was next? Would they expose themselves to an even darker force, or find a way to banish the one that tormented them? She closed her eyes, whispering an unmeasured prayer. But would that be enough to shield them as they braced against a cursed reality? A sudden crash echoed through the bedroom, dragging Rachel from her reverie. The door shook violently, the figure's laughter still reverberating in her ears, but now it was accompanied by sharp blows against the wood. Each strike sent a jolt of fear coursing through her as if it were a physical entity trying to pry them apart. "Mom!" Timmy squeaked, his small face pale, eyes wide as saucers, shimmering with unshed tears. "What do we do?" "It's coming." Rachel stammered, her mind racing. She pressed her body against the door, willing it to hold, but the screams outside were growing, shadows flickering violently beneath the crack at the bottom. Desperation clawed at her throat. She looked at the mirror. If there was a chance to fight back, to confront what was chasing them, it was in that cursed glass. "Timmy, listen to me," she said, trying to enforce calm through a tremor in her voice. "We need to show it we're not afraid. We need to use the mirror." "But what if it makes things worse?" Timmy's eyes darted, scanning the dark room as the laughter morphed into something more sinister, a rumble that echoed in Rachel's bones. "We have to take that chance," she insisted, grabbing the mirror and turning it toward the door. She could feel the icy chill radiating from its surface, whispering of secrets better left untouched. "If we can reflect whatever it is back into the darkness, maybe we can stop it." Timmy clung to her arm, his small fingers trembling. The door shuddered again, more frantic this time, as if it were alive and determined to break through. "Mom!" he cried again, panic rising in his voice. The laughter stopped, replaced by a chilling silence that settled over them like a thick fog. Rachel squared her shoulders, handing the mirror to Timmy. "You'll help me, right? You have to look into it with me." With a nod, he accepted the mirror, his tiny hands dwarfed by its size. The door slammed against the frame, splintering the wood. That moment of distraction was all they needed. Rachel squeezed his shoulder tightly. "Count to 3. On 3, we show it." 1, 2. As she prepared for the final push, she felt a shiver run down her spine. It wasn't just the fear of the entity beyond the door, it was a deeper instinct, a warning. But there was no time to ponder. 3. Both Rachel and Timmy turned the mirror toward the door, holding it with all their strength. For a brief moment, nothing happened. The silence grew thick around them, stretching the seconds to an eternity. Then, they saw at the surface of the mirror began to ripple and twist like water disturbed. Shadows surged from beneath the door, creeping toward them, dancing in an erratic frenzy. "What is happening?" Timmy breathed, eyes widening as the surface of the mirror swallowed the shadows, their dark tendrils reaching for the light. "It's working!" Rachel shouted, hope igniting within her. "Keep holding it steady." The chuckle returned, louder, more electric now, vibrating through the air. "Foolish mortals. You think a mere reflection will save you?" The twisted face contorted in the mirror's glass, its grin somehow broader, more menacing. The moment Rachel felt triumph, it shifted something else, something far worse, was awakening. "Timmy!" Rachel shouted, panic cutting through her bravado. "Don't look away." But even as she said it, the shadows surged, pushing against the mirror's force. For a fleeting moment, she felt the pull of their cold fingers wrapping around her wrist, tempting her with promises of freedom from fear. But the whispers grew louder. Suddenly, black smoke began seeping from the edges of the mirror, swirling like a storm around them. Memories of the faces trapped within flashed before Rachel's eyes. Each one possessed, each one begging for release, seeking vengeance on the living. "Mom! It's too much!" Timmy cried, his voice shaking. "Hold on!" Rachel shouted, forcing herself to maintain her grip on the mirror. The boundaries between their world and the one lurking beyond were cracking, like ice ready to shatter beneath their feet. And then, the whispers coalesced into one terrifying command. Join us, it blasted through her mind, threatening to sink her into an abyss of despair. With a primal scream, Rachel pushed the mirror forward, channeling her fear into a final act of defiance. Would it be enough to save them, or would they fall forever into the darkness? All at once, the room erupted in chaos. And then there was silence. In the sudden hush, Timmy's voice was the only sound, a whisper barely escaping his lips. "Mom?" Rachel's heart hammered. What had they unleashed? What awaited them when the stillness lifted? An eye, glowing with malice, appeared in the murky depth of the mirror, watching, waiting. What lay beyond the veil was only just beginning to reveal itself. Panic coursed through Rachel as the eye narrowed, a slit of darkness trapping them in its gaze. The shadows pulsed like a living thing, writhing and twisting in the corners of the room, drawn to the mirror as if it were a beacon. Each heartbeat echoed like thunder in her ears. "Timmy, don't look away." She gasped, forcing herself to hold the mirror steady, but her own resolve began to fray. The whispers intensified, a swirling cacophony of lost souls begging for release, taunting her with their lament. Something horrible lurked just beyond the eye, waiting for an invitation. She could feel the air grow colder, wrapping around them like a heavy shroud, paralyzing in its oppression. "Mom, I can't breathe." Timmy whimpered, his small frame trembling beside her. She glanced at him, his face a mask of fear, and a fresh wave of determination surged through Rachel. If this was their last stand, she wouldn't let Timmy be crushed by the weight of what was behind that mirror. "Look into my eyes, Timmy," she commanded, forcing her voice to steady. His gaze darted between the mirror and her face, desperate and vulnerable. "Repeat after me. We are not afraid." He met her eyes, and for a brief moment, they were united in defiance. "We are not afraid," he echoed, his voice quivering but resolute. The shadows recoiled, momentarily startled by their declaration. Rachel felt a flicker of hope. "Again, Timmy." Louder. She could see the eye narrowing, furious at their bravery. "We are not afraid." Timmy's voice rang out, growing stronger, cutting through the encroaching darkness. A horrific screech erupted as the shadows surged forward again, clawing at the air like living tendrils. The mirror rippled violently, caught in the battle between fear and courage. "Hold on, Timmy." Rachel screamed, desperation tightening its grip around her heart. She felt the vibration of the mirror, thrumming as if the very glass itself was alive. It was a tug of war. Light against darkness, hope against despair. When the eye surged with rage, it ignited the tension in the room, and a deep growl shook the walls. "Fools! You think you can banish me? I am more than just a shadow." Rachel bit back the rising terror. "We will not let you take him." The faces trapped in the mirror shifted, flickers of light illuminating the horror of their still forms. A woman with hollow eyes reached a hand forward, whispering urgently, "Help us know." Rachel shouted, shaking her head fiercely. "You're not taking him." From the depths of the mirror, a vortex of energy began to spiral, growing larger, consuming the cries of the lost. It wrapped around Rachel and Timmy, swallowing their voices until they were a mere whisper in the storm. "Look away, Timmy," Rachel shouted, forced to turn her eyes from the writhing chaos. She couldn't let him get trapped in the despair that threatened to pull them both under. But in that instant, the mirror cracked. Shards of glass flew through the air like deadly projectiles, and Rachel instinctively shielded Timmy. The eye in the mirror exploded with fury, as the shadows howled in rage. Time felt as if it had stopped, suspended in that harrowing moment of danger. Rachel could feel the chills of the spirit world creeping over her, seeping into her veins, whispering temptations that she could barely comprehend. As the mirror began to shatter completely, she took one last glimpse at that seething eye. It pulsated with anger and yearning. For a split second, she feared she saw a glimmer of her own reflection among the swirling darkness, a reflection she didn't recognize, distorted and lost. Then came a brilliant flash. The mirror shattered into countless pieces, exploding with a white flare as light engulfed the room. Rachel closed her eyes, thinking of nothing but Timmy. "Hold on," she yelled, but was unsure if he'd hear her over the noise of exploding glass and howling shadows. And as the last remnants of the mirror faded from view, she felt the floor shift beneath them. For an endless moment, they were consumed by blinding light and thundering chaos, the outlines of their reality dissolving. But when Rachel opened her eyes again, they were no longer in their room. What was left of the world sprawled out before them, twisted and dark, filled with echoes of suffering. "Where are we?" Timmy whispered fearfully. That chilling. I was watching them once more, but it was neither behind nor within a mirror. It was everywhere. "Far from home," Rachel murmured, dread pooling in her stomach. And it's not done with us yet. What awaited them in this new reality? Would they find a way back, or had they truly entered a world where nightmares ruled? The air was thick with an unnatural chill, clawing at Rachel's skin as she scanned the horizon. The twisted landscape was a nightmare made real, the ground littered with shards of rocks that looked like teeth, jagged and sharp. Trees stood as gnarled specters, their limbs contorted, reaching out as if trying to warn or ensnare. "Mom?" Timmy's voice broke through the suffocating silence, tinged with an edge of sheer terror. She knelt beside him, forcing her trembling hands to remain still. "I know it's scary, sweetheart, but we have to stay together. Keep your eyes open, and don't look away from me." But how could she ask him to stay focused when fear spun a web in her own heart? The shadows that had once lived behind the mirror now wandered freely, lurking just beyond the corners of her vision, whispering words she couldn't decipher. As they stepped forward into this dread-laden dimension, the whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a sinister wind. "Help us," they echoed, a haunting melody woven with agony. Rachel felt the pull of those voices. It was a lure that promised release from the torment she could hardly grasp. "Mom, look." Timmy pointed, his small finger trembling. Ahead, shapes flickered in and out of existence, a group of shadowy figures. Their forms shifted like smoke, haunting yet familiar, dragging with them the weight of despair. They gathered, forming a hesitant circle that seemed to call to Rachel, urging her to join them. "No, Timmy, we can't go over there," Rachel shouted, pulling him back as dread settled in her stomach. "We have to move away from them." Yet, against her instincts, something pulled at her heart. She stepped hesitantly closer, ignoring Timmy's panicked grabs at her arm. Shadows flickered across her vision, swaying, whispering stories of anguish, of a world that had once breathed life but was now consumed by despair. "Help us," a voice crooned, sweet and sickening, like honey on a blade. "Go back, Mom," Timmy cried, tugging vehemently. His small fingers felt desperate. Rachel whipped back around, catching the dread on his face, a reflection of her own. I can't," she murmured, voice barely a whisper. The shadows offered a sense of understanding, some kind of bond forged in suffering. Was it possible? Was this how she could find a way out? But then she saw it, the eye. It was a monstrous thing, looming above them, all-seeing yet all-consuming. It watched, tucked in the folds of both darkness and shadow. "Mom!" Timmy's scream pierced through the fog of her mind. Suddenly, the ground trembled. The shadowy figures hissed, and the air exploded with a cacophony of anguished wails. Rachel faced the horrified gaze of her son, her heart racing run. She roared, grabbing his hand and bolting away from those sinister forms. The earth seemed to upheave beneath them, gasping, trying to pull them back toward the shadows. As they sprinted, the howls chased them, relentless, clinging to the fabric of reality. Each thud of their feet echoed off the twisted trees, as if the forest itself was alive, mocking their fear. "Which way, Mom?" Timmy panted, the terror cracking his voice. "Just keep moving," she shouted back. But in her gut, a sickening feeling gnawed. Where could they go now? What awaited them in the depths of this cursed realm? Ahead, an ominous glow flickered like a distant lighthouse for lost souls. Was it hope? Or another trap set by the darkness? "Do you see that?" Rachel gasped, heart racing. That might be a way out. With every step closer, the light pulsed ominously. Shadows writhed around it, flickering angry faces that seemed to claw at the air. Would they be trapped again, haunted? "Are we safe there, Mom?" Timmy's voice trembled, eyes wide. I don't know, baby." As they approached the glowing beacon, the howls intensified, wrapping tighter around them. They felt a suffocating pressure, a promise of despair lurking just beneath the surface. The vision of safety glimmered, conflicting with the urgency of survival. Would they cross into the unknown, or would it bind them to the shadows forever? Rachel opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat, drowning in the rising fear as they stepped closer to the light. Was it truly the salvation they sought, or the eyes of the abyss waiting to swallow them whole? The light loomed closer, and Rachel felt a strange energy pulsating from it, pulling her towards its sickly glow. She glanced at Timmy, whose expression shifted from fear to bewilderment as he squinted against the brightness. Was this where the shadows had led them? "Mom, I don't like it." Timmy's voice quivered, clinging to her sleeve. "No, listen," Rachel urged, trying to mask her own dread with a calm tone. "We need to take a chance. It might be our only way out of this." She hesitated, searching for a word to encapsulate the horror around them. This nightmare. As they drew nearer, the shadows seemed less frightening, transformed under the halo of the light into more than just dark figures. Faces emerged, twisted, anguished visages that implored her with wide, empty eyes. "Join us, be like us," they murmured, voices blending into a dissonant harmony that rattled her bones. The excess of sorrow felt almost palpable, yet oddly inviting, like a warm embrace from a long-lost friend. Rachel's heart raced. "No, we can't," she shouted back, but their whispers slithered inside her mind, mingling with her panic. "Mom!" Timmy pulled at her desperately. The boy's small fingers were damp with sweat. "Please. Let us go." She stumbled, torn between the beckoning light and the urgency to escape. Right when Rachel thought she would drown in the shadows, she noticed an energy crackling in the light, something fierce and beautiful, but chaotic too. A disordered pull that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. "They're not humans," she muttered as realization settled in. They can control the light." Without warning, the shadows lunged toward them, their desperate grunts echoing, hungry for a morsel of warmth. Time blurred as primal fear jolted through Rachel, forcing her legs to run. "Mom, they're coming!" Timmy screamed, the panic in his voice lacerating her resolve. They dashed into the glow, colliding with something both soft and solid, as if crossing a threshold between worlds. Rachel's skin prickled, electricity tingling as the dark whispers faded behind them. Ahead, the landscape morphed into a surreal vision. Bright flowers unfurled, vibrant colors swelling in defiance against the oppressive darkness. The air was cleaner, clearer, and even the shadows that had once chased them seemed to dissolve into the background, muted and whispering half-formed regrets. "This is it. We made it." Timmy laughed, relief pouring from him. But Rachel frowned, unease nagging at her. "Hold on, it's too quiet." Suddenly, a deafening silence fell. No chirps of distant creatures, no rustling leaves, just emptiness. They stood in a meadow pulsating with an eerie stillness, and Rachel felt the weight of countless eyes descending upon them from the sky. "Mom." Timmy's voice trembled, a soft whisper swallowed by the silence. Then the flowers began to wither, petals dropping like frozen raindrops. She turned, and the shadows re-emerged, far more powerful as they slinked back into view, echoing laughter that felt acidic against her skin. "Now you belong to us," they chorused, their malevolent glee wrapping around her like a noose. "No!" Rachel screamed, snatching Timmy close to her as the shadows lunged again. In that moment, she felt a surge of something fierce within her, a desire to fight, to cling to the remnants of hope. But as she steeled herself, the ground trembled. Thin cracks formed, beauty and horror colliding as darkness and light warred around them. "What do we do now, Mom?" Timmy's small voice broke through the chaos, and Rachel felt the gravity of their situation. "Run, Timmy. Don't look back." And as they fled into the swirls of light and shadow, Rachel knew they were caught in a deadly game they could neither understand nor escape. But one question gnawed at her mind: was the light their salvation or a trap far worse than the darkness? The shadows lunged, dark fingers scraping at the calm they had just found. Rachel shoved Timmy ahead, her heart pounding like a war drum. They darted forward, the meadow shifting beneath their feet. The soil felt greasy, as if the very earth screamed out in anguish. "Mom! I can't!" Timmy cried, stumbling over brittle vines that curled around his ankles. Rachel's panic surged anew, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "I've got you!" she shouted, yanking him free as they pushed deeper into the hollow of light. The faces flickered in the periphery, shadows merging and separating, their mouths moving like fish in water, taunting and jeering. "Join us, be like us ahead," the light pulsed rhythmically, beating like a heart, promising a sanctuary that felt increasingly elusive. But the scent of rot crept into the air, choking and putrid, mixing with the sweet floral aroma of the meadow. She flinched at the thought that this wasn't a cure but a cleverly disguised poison. "Mom! Up there!" Timmy gasped, pointing to a sliver of dark sky peeking through the thinning forest of flowers. The darkness was contained, swirling in an unnatural dance far above them, a cyclone of despair, drawing near. Just as they crossed a threshold of pale light, tendrils shot out, grasping angrily at their clothes. Rachel felt them tug at her, thin and pleading. She forced her eyes from those dark invitations. The shadows whispered promises, secrets from those who had lost their way. "No! No!" Rachel screamed, jerking her arm from the grasping fingers. The words hung in the still air, heavy with desperation. Timmy stumbled back, his small frame swaying in confusion. "Mom, where do we go? I don't want to be with them." "Stay close." She pulled him tightly against her, running on instinct now, her instincts warring with the allure of the light. What had once felt like salvation now seemed like a cruel joke. The shadows slurped at their heels, emboldened by hunger, by the sinking dread flooding her mind. The ground beneath their feet cracked, forming jagged veins of darkness that pulsed between them and the light. Time felt distorted, each second dragging like an eternity. Rachel turned, glancing back as the figures melted into shadows, merging so seamlessly with their dark surroundings that it was nearly impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. "Mom, it's too much," Timmy pleaded, his voice barely a whisper now. He looked up at her, shadows pooling behind him, an ocean of despair threatening to swallow them whole. "I can't lose you." The fierce protectiveness ignited in her chest, hot and violent. She pressed forward, forcing her feet to a sprint, determined to break free from this nightmare. "What if we can't?" Timmy whimpered, a tear trailing down his cheek. Rachel's heart plunged. What if the boy was right? What if they were already claimed by the very shadows they ran from? She had to banish the thoughts. There had to be a way. Then she spotted it, a faint shimmer at the meadow's edge, a portal glistening like dew. The sensation of hope surged again, but just as quickly, the darkness lurched hungrily, the shadows howling with rage. "Timmy!" Rachel's voice surged with urgency. "We have to reach that light. Now!" Tendrils shot toward them, grasping and clawing, igniting the primal urge in Rachel to fight, the will to survive. Heart racing, she lunged forward, gripping Timmy's hand as tightly as she could. "Don't let go." They pushed through the barrier of light, the world as they knew it blurring into chaos behind them. But as they surged into the light, it faded into an icy grip. The meadow dissolved into darkness, and with it, the world they'd briefly known. "Mom?" Timmy's voice trembled in the void, the truth hanging heavy. They were free, but had they escaped the trap or only stepped further into its maw? Rachel froze, adrenaline coursing through her veins, as fear coiled around her like a snake. "What's happening?" she whispered, the realization sinking in. And then, a glimmer of light caught her eye, too familiar, too tempting. They had crossed into another realm, this one far darker than before. "Look out!" Timmy screamed, and Rachel's body reacted before her mind could catch up. Was this merely an extension of their nightmare, or the true nightmare waiting? The shadows awaited, lurking in the endless dark. What awaited them next? The void twisted around them, thick and suffocating. No light, no sound, just an oppressive silence that clung to Rachel like a shroud. She turned to Timmy, but his face was swallowed by the dark. Panic surged in her chest, tightening like a noose. "Timmy?" she called, her voice trembling, swallowed by the shadows. "I'm here, Mom. I can't see anything." His words were a desperate echo, pulling at her heart. She felt her way back to him, fingers brushing against something cold and wet. The dread returned, racing down her spine. "Stay close. Don't let go of my hand." Her grip tightened as she felt his small, clammy fingers wrap around hers. Shadows shifted and curled, twisting into grotesque shapes, like specters preparing to feast. She swallowed, forcing herself to remain brave, for Timmy's sake. But fear gnawed at her resolve. They moved together, cautiously, footsteps muted by the thick, viscous ground, each step threatening to sink into the murky darkness. Then it came again, the whispering. "The light is lies, false hope." Rachel flinched at the chilling sound, realization flooding her mind. The shadows were alive, speaking in a hushed, unsettling chorus that echoed around them. She could hear the malice in their words. They fed on despair, and she wouldn't give them that satisfaction. "Keep walking, Timmy," Rachel said, forcing the tremor from her voice. "Mom, I hear them. They're right here," Timmy cried, his voice rising in fear. She felt the electric chill as a shadow brushed past her, a cold feathery touch skimming over her shoulder. Adrenaline surged through her. "Ignore them. Focus on me." But the whispers grew louder, edging around her, wrapping tendrils of fear around her heart. "Join us forever. Lost is the only way." Silence. She screamed, the volume of her voice shocking even her. The air stilled, then there was a kind of stillness that swallowed the whispers. "Look." Timmy pointed, his voice trembling with fragile hope. Ahead, a shimmering light flickered like a distant star in the oppressive gloom. It pulsed gently, radiating warmth and drawing them in. "It's a way out," Rachel shouted, hope igniting in her chest. They stumbled toward it, driven by desperation. Then the shadows surged, a tide of dark rage. They wailed, screeching in a language she felt deep in her bones, clawing at them with icy fingers. Rachel felt the pull of the darkness, the specters trying to tear them apart. "Hold on," she yelled, sprinting towards the light that flickered like a beacon. Timmy's small shoes slipped on the wet ground behind her, and she turned, yanking him up just in time. "We can't stop. Don't look back." "Mom, I'm scared." His voice broke, echoing her own fears. "I know. But we have to trust in the light." She squeezed his hand tighter. The light loomed closer, pulsing brighter with every step. The shadows howled behind them, a cacophony of despair. Just a few more feet. Rachel pushed forward, the light now blinding, throwing colors around them. She could almost taste freedom, the sweetness rushing over her. But the shadows, angered and relentless, lashed out one last time, wrapping around her ankles, pulling her down. "Mom!" Timmy shrieked, panic lacing his voice. She stumbled but didn't let go. "Keep moving. I want to let you go." The ground beneath her shifted, dark vines twisting tighter, desperate to claim her. Rachel gritted her teeth, pulling with every ounce of strength. The light beckoned, still within reach, but it felt like diving into an endless chasm. Finally, Rachel kicked free of the last vine's grasp, longing for the light that shimmered with hope. They broke through an invisible barrier, thrust into the warmth. But instead of safety, they landed on hard, frozen ground amidst a whispering forest of pale trees that loomed ominously overhead, their branches twisted like skeletal fingers. A chilling laughter cascaded through the air. More shadows, more darkness surrounding them, deeper than where they had emerged. "What have we done?" Rachel shouted, her heart plummeting. Timmy trembled, eyes wide, scanning the abyss of shadow that now closed in. "Again. What if it really is their world now?" he whispered. Just then, something glimmered in the distance. A figure darted behind the trees, pale and spectral. "Mom! What's that?" Rachel squinted, unease unfurling in her gut. They had escaped one trap, only to stumble into another. What if there's no way out? She murmured bitterly, dread creeping back into her heart as dark shapes began to merge at the edges of vision. That laugh echoed once more, chilling to the bone. Was it truly a nightmare, or were they on the cusp of something far worse? Would any escape truly be theirs? The air pulsed with a heavy silence. Rachel and Timmy stood frozen, their breaths shallow, awash in the dread that swirled around them. The shadows danced, flickering like restless flames, mirroring their escalating terror. With each heartbeat, the oppressive presence encroached closer, seeping into their resolve. "Mom, I don't like this place." Timmy's voice trembled, but Rachel couldn't afford to falter. There had to be a way out, a glimmer of hope waiting to be uncovered. She gripped his hand tighter, eyes scanning their strange surroundings. Pale trees loomed above like skeletal sentinels, branches reaching toward the dark sky, whispering secrets meant for listeners who dare not appear. The shadows hovered just beyond the trees, a chorus of voices echoing their despair. "Join us, stay with us." "No!" Rachel shouted, defiance fueling her voice, shaking off the despair threatening to pull her under. "We're not like you." But the laughter returned, sinister and sweet, ringing in her ears. Timmy's grip tightened in response, quivering with fear. "What do we do, Mom?" Rachel closed her eyes, seeking a way forward. "We move," she shouted, pulling Timmy close and stepping forward, refusing to be ensnared by the shadow's lure. Each step felt heavy, like wading through thick mud, but she pressed on, determination igniting within her. A few feet ahead, the darkness parted, revealing a narrow path winding through the looming trees. Without hesitating, Rachel led Timmy forward. "Stay close, keep your eyes on me," she called, forcing her voice to break through the increasing chaos. The shadows writhed, gripped by an anger that suffused the air with a thick tension. They hissed and howled, rushing toward them like a tangible wave. "You cannot escape," they shrieked, and Rachel's heart raced as they plunged deeper into the tree's embrace. "Mom, they're coming!" Timmy screamed, and she felt the air grow colder, the atmosphere dense with despair clawing at her throat. "Run!" Rachel yelled, adrenaline surging as she sprinted down the path, Timmy desperately keeping pace, fragments of laughter echoing in their wake. All the while, shadows elongated, slashing through the air like 1,000 tendrils reaching for them. But she refused to look back. As they ran, the darkness morphed, swirling into faces of agony, each whisper an echo of despair. "Join us," they cried, wrapping around her mind with chilling familiarity. But she shook her head violently, pushing their voices aside. "I want to let you take him," she screamed, forcing raw strength into her voice. In that moment, she recalled every danger they had faced together, every bond made stronger through adversity. Suddenly, the path opened into a clearing, and their radiating brightness was a beam that cut through the darkness like a lightning bolt. "Timmy!" "There!" Rachel pointed, her heart soaring with hope. They dashed toward it, the shadows lunging behind them, shrieking in rage and desperation. "You can't leave!" they wailed. "Just a little farther," Rachel urged, pushing her legs to their limit, pulling Timmy along with her. As they neared the light, the shadows shrieked, thrashing against the barrier that grew brighter with each step. A surge of warmth enveloped her as they burst through, feeling the rush of freedom wrap around them like a warm embrace. Then, everything fell silent. Rachel opened her eyes and found herself on the front porch of their home, the sun washing over them, warm and healing. Timmy clung to her, shock plastered across his young face. "Mom? Is this real?" Rachel let out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. "I think we're home," she whispered, heart bursting with relief. But beneath the joy, she felt a lingering dread. What happened to the shadows? Would they return? Did we win? Timmy queried, his face searching hers for the answer. Rachel knelt, cupping his face in her hands. "We fought back, honey. We faced the darkness, and we're stronger for it. But we can't let our guard down." "Darkness doesn't just disappear." Her words stuck in the air, and Timmy nodded solemnly, understanding that they had ventured into a fight beyond their years. "We'll be ready, right?" Yes, she promised, a fire igniting inside her. Together. As the sun set, casting long shadows across their porch, Rachel held Timmy close, knowing that life would never be the same. They had stumbled into nightmares and emerged stronger, but she understood all too well that vigilance would be their new armor. This time, they would be the ones to guard against the dark, standing together like beacons of light against the unimaginable. And with one final look at the sun-soaked horizon, they stepped inside, the door closing behind them softly, leading back into their warm, safe home where they would heal, endure, and be ready for whatever darkness dared to come. Now, they were not merely survivors. Rachel and Timmy were fighters, ready to guard their peace. But deep inside, a spark of fear still flickered. Because the shadows were always out there, waiting for the next moment of weakness. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for more thrilling tales and exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the adventure alive. And flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about the ending. You know we love to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, we'll keep the journey going strong.